Hey there, ho there. This is Nuts and Bolts, where we take a look behind the scenes of some of your favorite episodes of Anime Abandon's past. Today, we're looking at the very first episode of Anime Abandon, Psychic Wars. Oh, the memories.
Oh, the slow ass intro.
Still gotta thank Scott for that. By the by, the text on the very first intro, that was me. That's not Scott's fault. All right, that's my lack of editing prowess at the time, and still today.
At the time.
But yes, this is the very, very first episode of Anime Abandon. And as you can tell from the poor framing of the camera, the awful sound, yeah, this is the very first episode.
I mean, we could just examine this like a fucking time capsule. Just all the things you don't do anymore. Just like printed t-shirts, don't do that anymore.
No. I kind of have personally, I have a thing with wearing printed shirts. I don't like the ability for random people to see me on the street and instantly guess what I'm into. I don't like being pegged. And oh my god, this was the best footage of 0083 I could find at the time. And it's awful. I know, but ugh.
This is why no Gundam, people.
Exactly. And okay, let's talk a little bit about why I chose Psychic Wars as the first episode of all anime. Why Psychic Wars? Well, it turned out I chose Psychic Wars because it was the anime that I felt that not a lot of people knew about, and it was a kind of a good gateway into what Anime Abandoned would eventually be about. Talking about anime that only a handful of people would care about to know. And I think it came out pretty strong, all things considered. I mean, as far as the first episode is concerned, it's one of those. It could have gone either way because there wasn't really a lot of plot to talk about because like much of the anime that existed back then, the plot was things happen, then more things happen.
Which, I mean, you could argue that that's every bad anime that we review.
Oh god. Back then, I didn't really have a good lighting setup, so I would have to use the natural light that came in through my window. Hence why certain angles of the DVD case, when I hold it up to the camera, you get the light reflected into the lens. Ugh, that still happens every now and then, and I just curse the day.
I don't know. I mean,
Oh,
there's a novelty at looking at the first episode and just going like, okay, so I mean, not to judge yourself too harshly, but never do this again, never do that again.
I like to think that my writing style hasn't changed all too much. I mean, from episode to episode, but back then I didn't exactly have a set idea of what Anime Abandoned was going to be. At the time, I thought the format of the episode would change along with the anime. Like this episode was, since it was kind of a bad anime, a good bad anime, I was just going to play the typical internet reviewer and just say, ha ha, look at this scene, and move on from there. And the next episode would be Golden Boy, and that would be the introduction of Suave, but he would just present the anime as a tutorial on how to pick up women. And that's how that review went. And by episode 3, it just, I've kind of cemented what the show would be about. Or at least the approach to it. God, that shelf is so empty. I miss having space.
Yeah, long gone is the ability to have space, and now we're just like, well, why don't we expand to the next wall? Because it's Bennett's actual closet, so we can't. One day we'll have a set.
One day. But I live in a small apartment, and space is at a premium. But talking about Psychic Wars today feels almost like trying to remember something you learned back in the 4th grade. Like, you remember the general things about it, but you can't remember specifics. Like, I remember, like, the main hero kicking a demon in the... No, punching a demon in the groin. That's about it. And I also remember an evil Staryu that you're about to see in a few minutes here, but it's just one of those things that because there's no real plot connecting the scenes together, you just kind of remember the anime by scene basis.
Was this before or after Garzy's Wing?
This was after Garcy's Wing. This was Garcy's Wing was in 2011. This was 2012. No, I'm so sorry. Garcy's Wing was in 2010. This was in 2011. But it's Psychic Wars to me. is it belongs in this weird era of anime where pretty much anything could get made, anything at all, because there was any anime historian can tell you that during the late 80s, early 90s, there was this bubble. Oh, I completely forgot about this. Holy crap. So back in the earliest days, I thought that every so often there would be a little animated segment for, like a cutaway gag. And thank you so much to Marabot for animating this. But this was one of the first times he ever animated anything, and because of the importing process, a lot of artifacts came through, as you can plainly see. But but he did a fantastic job otherwise, and I appreciate all the hard work he did. And it's unfortunate that not a lot, it didn't become a regular thing down the line.
No, but that means that it's more special when we finally do those things, like the Laughing Kaiser bit emulating the scene from Brave Little Toaster.
Mm-hmm. Oh, great Photoshop work, right? What are you gonna do? Besides, get better.
Point and laugh really, really hard, and be happy that my name is nowhere near this episode.
But yeah, going back to history here for a moment, the during the time there was a bubble that Japan had so much money they didn't exactly know what to do with, so they would spend it on projects that would never be greenlit today. It was a great time to be an anime creator by the sense that they just had money and they wanted, the project to be done with, and they didn't care what was inside the box so long as there is a box to sell. But today, that's simply not the case. Everything is highly regulated. Everything is highly, like indexed. Like, this will sell. Oh, hence the crotch punch scene right here. But like, this thing has to sell, and the only way this will sell is if it follows these certain guidelines and these certain beats and with these certain characters. Hence why anime feels way more samey than it does back then. I mean, even back then, there was a lot of tropes, 80s anime tropes, like this guy's just filled to the brim with them, like this mulleted, broad-chested male character that only existed during the 80s.
Yeah, that simply put does not exist anymore.
It just doesn't. Anime became way younger, and
I know, like I really think about it like we improved the method, like I mean, objectively you can say that computer coloring improves the method, but we've run short on good ideas. So now we can produce like super fast, but everything just like all we're producing super fast is the same shit over and over again. And every once in a while, once or twice a year, something really hits like Attack on Titan, and you go like, oh, okay, that's drastically different. Mostly,
it's the trappings are different, and but the characters follow a certain, what's the word I'm looking for? They follow a certain arc that quite frankly is prevalent in anime. The young kid learning to grow up in a world that wants to destroy him.
yeah. But it used to be about a lone dude against the world and all odds, and demons and monsters and giant robots.
I know,
and dudes slightly bigger than him,
everyone was Kenshiro.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess at the end of the day, what you're doing is just trading. God, that was so cheesy. But at the end of the day, you're just trading one trope for another. And I guess I'm just tired of the current trope, and I would welcome a return, just not for long. Before I would never want to get tired of this, but I would imagine I would.
I don't know. I mean, if we had a mixture of the two, it wouldn't be so bad. Like if there was just an anime that I could pick up off a shelf right now, where the dudes don't look like women and the women don't look like girls, that'd be great.
And another animated bit that Marabot did. Again, he did a great job, and none other than Nick Landis provided fake Arnold here. And I originally I wanted to do the voice, but you know what? I just felt, why not just have him? Why not just get Nick to do it? And he was a sport about it. I haven't talked to him in a while. I wonder what he's up to. The worst thing about this anime to me is the fact that it's just so completely forgettable. If I had my druthers, I would go back in time and choose a different episode to be my first episode, because I would, like, you would want it to be memorable. You want the first episode to stick in people's minds, but that's just simply not the case with something like.
I think it sticks in people's minds, or stuck in people's minds at the time, and continued to for at least 3 episodes, because it wasn't talking about the new stuff, because it wasn't doing things like counting gags, and it was genuinely like, hey, did you know that the 90s happened? And that's part of the gas in the engine of Anime Abandon, is like, hey kids, did you know that the 90s and the 80s happened and people were alive then doing things?
I know, craziest thing, right? Oh, heel turn, the worst heel turn in anime history. I think, yeah, that is the first use of Censor Kaiser in Anime Abandon. The very first. Although, not the first time I ever used him properly in a review. The first time was for a crossover review with Cinema Snub, The Human Tornado. And basically, the story behind that was I needed a censor. I needed something to censor all the nudity in that movie, but I didn't want to just use a black bar. So I asked Scott if I could borrow his little image for his floating head for a sales promo that he did for Team 4-Star back in the day. And he said yes, and the rest is history. You gotta love that Zelda stab. Ah! Right in the forehead. You had to see it coming. Oh, horrible.
We were talking earlier about how in new anime just about everybody dies pretty. Like they live fast, do bad things, and leave a beautiful corpse. And that just was not the case in old anime.
No, when people died, they freaking died. Hence, hence that forehead stab. But the last time I ever saw a new anime where someone died horribly was in Shiguri Death Frenzy, where people got eviscerated and their intestines were pulled out and stuff like that. But that was in 2008, so that.
Yeah, and I'm sure that people would, in the comments, they'll cite like this anime and this anime, and I'm just like, look, a cloud of blood ejected at high pressure is not a grotesque death. It just means that a bunch of paintballs exploded.
Yeah, there's just nothing like old death in old anime. There just isn't. But I want to thank you, Mark, for joining me down this journey down memory lane, and I'd like to thank you all for joining us and letting me get past the first episode. Well, the episode has come to an end, and I'd like to thank you all for joining us, and until next time.